Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Cobra, finishing up the paint job stuff that I'm doing on the Gladiator, kind of on hold right now due to some weather. So gonna get to work on the Cobra a little bit. When we left off, last video I did had a video of it running, and then I also did what I hope to be the final tweak on the ride height. So I did finally take it out yesterday for about a 30-minute drive. One, I wanted to let the suspension settle so I could double check the frame heights again, make sure they're where I want them to be. Two, it was a nice day and it was a lot warmer, so I wanted to kind of check and see how the vehicle is as far as the heat in the cabin on a longer run after doing the foam installation I did a few videos ago. And then the third thing was I had a suspicion that there was an issue with the speedometer, as although I've really only driven it on city streets, I never saw it go above 40 miles an hour. So want to take it on a highway. So as far as reports go, still have to measure the frame, so I'll do that next. As far as the heat in the cabin, way better than it was before. Driving down the road, I still feel a little coming from under the dash, and I'm 99% sure the majority of that is coming from the steering shaft, because this is a Mark II. So it just has this big gaping open hole there for the steering shaft to go through, and hot air is just going right in through that. So I know there's a grommet you can get from Googling. I did go ahead and order that off Amazon. Should have that the next day or so. So I will be installing the grommet to hopefully insulate the cabin a little bit better and keep that heat out. So that should be something coming up pretty soon. And then the last thing was the speedometer. Took this on the highway yesterday. Where I live, I'm right off of one exit, and then there's an exit like a mile up the road. I didn't want to drive it too much on the highway because I still have concerns about these tires, but I at least wanted to be able to test the speedometer. I can say that yes, the speedometer does not go past 40. I can also say that I did verify that the alignment is very off, because I thought I was going to die trying to drive this on the highway. It was just so darty that I was pretty much white knuckling the steering wheel. So that is the next thing I'm going to be doing on this, is getting the alignment fixed, setting the toes. So I don't know if you've noticed in any of my videos before, I have hub stands that I have from back in the days when I had my Miata, and those should be able to be used on the bolt pattern that I have on the Cobra currently. So that is my plan, is to get this up on the hub stands, and once I do double check the align or the ride height, and then I can do a toe alignment and also check the camber and caster, make sure everything is within spec, and get this thing all set. So that's next on the list. I'm going to get to work on that and be back shortly. All right, real quick, just did my measurements. Both front frame measurements were 4.5. The left rear is 4 7/8. The right rear is 5 inches. So I'm good with it, close enough. I'm gonna run with those for right now. So yeah, get this thing up in the air and start doing the alignment. All right, and here we are on the hub stands, ready to do the alignment. These things work great, have all kinds of graduations on them, and measuring spots. Paco Moto makes them, and like I said, they sell them for Miatas, but the bolt patterns are pretty universal. The one end is a 4-lug, the other end's a 5-lug, so they'll work on a lot of different vehicles. So I am going to go ahead and get started on checking the toe and everything. All right, so the first step in the alignment that I wanted to take care of was checking the center of everything and whatnot based on where the steering wheel is. And I had a feeling that when this thing was built, it was built with an offset because there was more turns to one side than the other. So sure enough, this is where it's center and where the wheels should be pretty much pointing forward. Turning to the left, I have roughly 2.5 turns. Going to the right, I have a little over 1.5. So this definitely is not centered in the car properly. At least the rack's not centered as far as where the bar is on the tie rod ends. And that can be confirmed if you look. Tie rod ends on the driver's side, pretty good amount showing there. Tie rod ends on the passenger side, much less thread showing there. So we definitely have to, before we start aligning this thing, get the actual rack centered. I did find a few articles online about this. There's actually multiple steps in this. There's getting the internals of the rack centered to the rack. There's the getting the rack centered to the frame, and then getting the equivalent amount of threads showing for the tie rod ends. Those are, the goals you're looking for to make sure you have the best suspension steering response possible and everything's balanced out. And then once that's done, what you can do is where the U joint slips onto the steering rack, you can remove that, center the steering wheel based on the splines there, and then just re-drill for the lock bolt if necessary. So that's probably the process I'm going to take with this. So it's going to take a little bit longer to get this thing aligned than I planned, but I want to do it right and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. All right, and I apologize. There's a lawnmower going outside of my neighbors across the street, so you may hear that sound in the background, but you should be able to hear me fine. So messing around with this a little bit, it looks like right here is about where it's going to be centered as far as the rack goes. In this position, I have 2 turns basically side to side. So I'm actually thinking what I might do is try and align it in this position, get everything fine-tuned on the rack and whatnot, and then just re-drill, if necessary, the holes that mount the steering wheel to the boss. I think there's a slight offset with lining things up, but I think it'll be close enough where I can make it work. So I'm thinking that's the route I'm going to go. More to come on that, but like I said, the first step is going to be making sure everything in the front is where it's supposed to be as far as the geometry goes. Then I can deal with the steering wheel and getting that centered after the fact. All right, it's the next day, and I was doing a little bit of research last night as well, just regarding the front geometry and the steering rack. Looking at the rack that I have in the vehicle currently, if you look at it, it definitely looks like it's set back. You can see the spacers in there. And that also, looking at the bushings, it does look like it has offset bushings. It looks like the hole in the offset is on the bottom, which actually would put the rack up a little bit higher. I think that's for the bellows clearance. But in doing that, if you look at the control arm in comparison to the tie rod arm, it looks like the tie rod is at more of a downward angle versus the control arm, which looks pretty flat and level. So I'm thinking, that might cause a little bit of bump steer from what I've read, because the best way to align this would be to have the tie rod arm pretty much parallel with the control arm. But again, I think the problem I'm going to run into here is the bellows is going to rub on these factory lower control arms. I do plan on getting the tubulars down the road. So what I'm probably going to do is just line it as is with the existing location of everything, just because like I said, I don't think I can lower the rack at the moment. I'll have the bellows interfering, and I don't want to remove the bellows and have things exposed. So that's probably my best bet at the moment until I get upgraded control arms, and then I have more clearance. Then I can drop the rack down a little bit, and that should help with any bump steer issues down the road. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting to work on getting this thing aligned. All right, so next steps in getting this thing centered is I took a measurement of the exposed threads on the inner tie rod ends on both sides. So on the driver's side, there was 1 1/8 of thread. On the passenger side, there was 9/16. So basically what I need to do is shift it by 9/32 each side. So I'm going to add roughly 7/8 of thread on the passenger side and subtract 7/8 on the driver's side. So that'll at least get me to the ballpark of where I'll be centered, and then I will use the alignment plates and get this thing actually centered and aligned with just a ever slight bit of toe in, and that'll be the final alignment. All right, so I think I may have misspoke in the last segment saying that I wanted to add 7/8 and subtract 7/8. What I meant to say is that I want it to be 7/8 basically on each side. So I needed to deduct on this side to get it down to 7/8 of exposed thread, and then add to the other side to get 7/8 of exposed thread. So I have done that. So that pretty much gets the sides equal, at least how they are as far as the amount of thread showing off of the inner tie rod ends to the outers. So now I'm going to go ahead and start doing the remainder of the alignment, get the toe plates measured, see where we're at as far as toe in, toe out, and then go from there. All right, so it's been a few days since the last clip. Apologies, been feeling a little under the weather, so haven't really done much with the car. And then if you follow my channel, you'll see that I posted a video yesterday where I had to go to the body shop and pick up the MR2 because it was finally finished. So back to work now on the car. Still not feeling really good, so not sure how much I'm going to get done today, but I do want to try and get back to getting this alignment done. I'm going to start with trying to get the steering wheel put where I want it as far as the location of the wheel on the hub, and then I can go from there to do the alignment and make sure everything's centered to the frame. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do is get this thing unbolted and get it clocked where I want it, and we'll see how things go from there. All right, update time. So I pulled the steering wheel off, the 6 bolts, and tried to move it that way, and it was 4 of the holes were off, not 2. I thought it was only gonna be 2 slightly off from what I'd read previously. That was wrong. Only 2 lined up and the other 4 were way off. So I put it back on where it was, and I'm addressing it a different way. I went ahead, started messing around with the linkage. Now your vehicle may be different. I've got the manual rack that's splined and then has this linkage. I went ahead and pulled out the through bolt right there that is for the collapsing portion of the rack. I had also pulled out the 2 set screws there, seeing if I could get it out that way, and I couldn't. So I went to this, and then I pulled out the set screw down at the bottom there where it actually goes onto the splined portion of the rack and pinion. And then I just rotated it accordingly and reset it on the splines there. I'll just have to run a drill bit down in the center of the hole to put a flat spot in there, whatnot, for the set screw to go into, and then we'll be all set. So that's how I'm addressing it. I did just double check it, and it is now 2 1/10 turns each way, left to right. So steering wheel is centered in the rack where I want it to be. So now I can go ahead and set the actual alignment. All right, so here we are getting the first look at where the toe is. So back measurement looks to be about 60.5 inches. Front measurement about 60 5/8. So yeah, we are ever so slightly toed out in the front. So I'm going to go ahead, see if I can find a way to measure it to the frame just to get everything centered, and then go ahead and get this toe set properly. All right, well, I've been messing around with this for a little while, and I think I've got it where I want it. I started by using the flat level here on the back of the hub stand, going and measuring between that and the frame just to try and get this thing as square to the frame as possible on each side. Got that where I wanted it, and then just started messing with the toe. If you look, you'll see rear is pulling at 60 9/16. Front is pulling at 60.5. So I've got a 16th toe in, which is where I want it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to drive it, see how it works out, make sure the steering wheel center, that measurement is with the steering wheel in the center where I wanted it and where it's got 2 turns each side. I still have to just run a drill bit down the one hole for the set screw, and then I'll be good to go with getting the alignment all done. All right, here we are. I have the set screw reinstalled in the fitting that connects to the shaft off of the rack and pinion. All the other hardware is back in and tight and reconnected, so we are all set here. Like I said, I've got the steering wheel set now where I have 2 turns, 1, 2, just over 2, both sides. There's center again, 1, 2, and right there. So pretty happy with where it turned out. Gonna end the video here. I've got a few other things I want to do to the vehicle while it's up in the air before I do the test drive and make sure the alignment's right. But like I said, by my measurement, it should be good. It's just going to be whether or not the steering wheel is in the right spot. So You know, I may have to do a fine tweak and, you know, do a turn here, turn there on the tie rod ends just to get everything perfectly centered, but we'll see. So anyway, I'm going to end this here. Next video on the Cobra, I've got those parts for the Cobra, or the clutch pedal. I want to get that fixed because that's kind of annoying. I also have the other 2 gauges sitting right there on top of that fan to do the 5-gauge cluster. That's the clock and the oil temperature gauge. I want to get those installed because it's driving me nuts having just the 3 gauges there. It just doesn't look right. Plus there's a wrinkle in the vinyl where the open holes are underneath the vinyl. So yeah, that's where I'm going to call it a day. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing, learning something, please like, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Plenty more to come on this vehicle. Thank you for watching and have a great day.